Good morning, Gamecocks, and happy game day.
Welcome to SGTV's Gamecock Game Day, where we lay down everything you need to know about Gamecock football.
Stay tuned to hear our thoughts on today's matchup against number 7 Alabama, our Cocky Call question of the week, and South Carolina's hard fall against Ole Miss last weekend.
All that and more coming up. Welcome to Gamecock Game Day.
Thanks for sticking with us, Gamecocks. I'm Sebastian Godun.
And I'm Austin McConnell. South Carolina football went without a touchdown last Saturday in their loss against Ole Miss. Ole Miss shut down South Carolina's offense from the start with a turnover in their first possession that would lead to a Rebel touchdown. It was Henry Parrish Jr. who rushed 3 yards into the end zone to secure the early lead for Ole Miss. A Carolina fumble recovered by Rebel Walter Nolan and a 29-yard pass to former Gamecock Antoine Juice Wells led to another early touchdown for Ole Miss a few plays later. The score would remain the same until the second quarter when the Gamecocks were finally able to put some numbers on the board with a 40-yard field goal from Alex Herrera. The Rebels responded soon after with a field goal of their own and another touchdown to end the half. The Gamecocks began the second half with more offensive turmoil, leading to a missed field goal. Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart ran 14 yards to the South Carolina 32 to set up another field goal, extending their lead to 27-3, where it would remain for the rest of the game.
This was just a crazy game, and I think there's so much on our side that went wrong, and we can blame for all of this. So, there's a lot to talk about. I just wanted to start off by how we got off on a bad start within the first few plays. A fake punt to a turnover, and then giving Ole Miss a touchdown just to start off the game. That's ridiculous, and that put us in a really bad spot to continue going on throughout the game. I think that really set the mood for us, and kind of is the reason why we got down so early. And then on top of that, throughout the game, just bad offensive coaching throughout the entire game. Multiple offsides fouls on the defense as well. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said, Sebastian. We had 80 yards in penalties last week. That's not good at all. In the Beamer era, where we were 3-0 after a bye week, and so to see that brutally honest, pathetic of a performance was very embarrassing and very, you could feel the energy in the stadium after those first couple plays, and especially after that fake punt where it just sucked the life out of us and we never got it back. So it was just very, very interesting to see that after a bye week, when we're normally so good under Shane Beamer, it was just rough to watch.
Right. As a fan, I was sitting right below the press box. I could tell the crowd was so hyped at that beginning, and then after that first fake punt failed, it was just not the same. That was the second lowest scoring game of Shane Beamer's career in South Carolina. The lowest when we scored 0 against Clemson in 2021. So I don't know what's really going on here. The kicker. Multiple times we only scored 1 field goal, no touchdowns. He made that 1 field goal from 40 yards and then went on later in the game to miss a 38-yard field goal. This is the same kicker. He made 42 yards against LSU and then missed the game-tying one from 49 yards. So I don't know. I think our special teams is fine, but we are having some trouble with this kicker for multiple games. And then, like I said earlier, the defense wasn't bad, but it's hard to motivate a defense when your offense is just making stupid plays and not doing anything at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to touch on the special teams point you made. That's where Beamer ball thrives usually, is the special teams. And so whenever our offense is struggling, we rely on those special teams to get those points. And so when we're missing field goals, we're faking punts and not getting those 1-2 extra yards that we need. It really just sets us back even further. And so I also wanted to talk about the defense, like you mentioned. Dylan Stewart had another great game. Had a unsportsmanlike conduct. That was an interesting celebration, to say the least. We can't have that happen.
No.
I don't care what the score is. I don't care if we're up or we're down. We cannot be taking bad penalties like that, and that goes into the 80 yards I was talking about. That's almost a full football field length of penalties. That can't happen every game, and it's been an ongoing issue this season.
Yeah, and Beamer talked about that in his presser. He didn't really say much about that. He kind of just made a face, but it kind of just goes back to how it seemed like he really just couldn't control the team at all this past game, and how there was just no. They weren't very disciplined throughout the game. Just making these stupid plays. With Lenora Sellers, he had a 63% completion rate, but only 3 of those were more than 15 yards. So, when he was taking forever to throw the ball every single time, and then had to resort to just short throws to get rid of the ball. And he did make most of them, but we're not really passing the ball very far. We're not continuing to move the ball, and that was really a struggle. He had 162 passing yards, but that was nothing compared to Ole Miss, and that really showed in how many touchdowns they had. And again, just went back to our bad offensive coaches running the same run, pass plays every single possession. And when we can't even get that right, we're doing the same plays. It's just embarrassing, honestly, and it's just not a good idea. I don't really know what was happening, but this week we have another cocky call straight from the Gamecock Gridiron.
Was the Ole Miss loss due to poor coaching, or was it an on-the-field issue? And I think we were just talking about this, how we can't get those medium distance throws. What I want to see more is set up the run game by converting these 2nd and 7s, these 3rd and 8s with passes over the middle, more perimeter play. Everything has been so in tight, so Rocket Sanders heavy or quarterback scramble heavy. It's been an issue. I don't know if we have a quarterback.
No.
Lenore Sellers is supposed to be the guy. He hasn't really broken through yet. Robbie Ashford had 1 snap last week and fumbled on the handoff. He wasn't even touched. So it's very scary going into Bama today, which we'll talk about in a minute. But if we don't have a quarterback, we don't have an offense, how are we going to win these big games? How are we going to convert on those 3rd and 7s if we can't even throw the ball? That's my thing. I think it was both. I think we definitely had some on-the-field issues, but you mentioned it. The play calling has been, to be brutally honest again, atrocious, and I have really not agreed with any of the calls they've made. No. I would like to see them establish the run game a little bit better by airing the ball out.
Yeah, I agree. I personally think that it's more like 50-50. I think it's really easy to just right away blame the coaching here because that was an obvious mistake, but we also need to go back to the players and how Lenore Sellers is playing, especially compared to his first few games of the season, and where he was looking much better, and then this game after the off week, and he's just forgot how to play again. I mean, listen, this was his 4th game out of possibly like 50 in his college career, so I'll give him some slack, and he's still easing in, and he has a lot of time to come, hopefully with the Gamecocks continuing. But I think as we get more into the season, it's just going to become more unacceptable for him to continue playing like that, and I hope to see him get better like he was in the first few games. In addition to let's rethink how we're coaching this, because clearly something's not working out.
Yeah, Shane Beamer definitely feels some fire underneath his seat for sure, and his whole coaching staff should. It's been kind of the talk this year. I've seen a lot of people, calling for him to be fired. I don't know if I'd fire him yet, but his seat is definitely getting a lot warmer. They have made some questionable calls for sure. Beamer ball just isn't working right now. We talked about with the special teams, so I'm really interested to see how they attack the second half of the season. And we do have another bye week coming up in 2-3 weeks now, so. It's gonna be interesting to see how they come out of that bye week, but they got to get through Bama and Oklahoma first, and I'm gonna be very interested to see how they coach that one.
Yeah, look, I think South Carolina's fans' emotions are very volatile, and they often are quick to blame a coach and ask for a coach to get fired. So I don't know if that's what we want to base how he's really doing on. But I do agree. I think he is his seat is kind of getting warmer, and I think he will be under a lot of scrutiny coming up if he can't turn this around and get back to where we were going and heading. And, it looked like we were going to have a great season, and I hope that we do after this. But that game was just not good. And if we continue playing like that and coaching like that, we're not going to be where we thought we were headed. So.
Yeah, and we want to get back to the postseason. Obviously, we missed it with a 5-7 record last year. You need 6 wins to make a bowl game. It's games like LSU that when they slip away from you like that, it's so hard it's such a tough pill to swallow. We've ranted about that for weeks now, so we're gonna stay away from that. But it's just games like that when you're in close matchups, when you have opportunities like coming out of a bye week, Ole Miss off of a loss, they're shaken, they're rattled. You gotta play them a little harder, a little tougher, and they just didn't do that. And so I hope they turn it around. I hope they ignite a fire underneath them somehow.
Yeah.
Hopefully they take the criticism and use it as motivation and fuel, but very interested to see how it comes the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and I did just want to make a quick note. The second half of this game was kind of starting to remind me of the LSU game where we were making these dumb plays and dumb decisions that were allowing the refs to control the game. And I think that that's something that we need to be focusing on this week and in future weeks so that that's something like the LSU game isn't happening again.
Absolutely. Stay tuned after the break to hear our thoughts on today's SEC matchup.
Welcome back, Gamecocks. South Carolina and Alabama are both looking for redemption this afternoon as they take the field against each other in Tuscaloosa.
Last weekend, the Vanderbilt Commodores knocked off the Alabama Crimson Tide in Nashville with a huge upset victory. Due to the loss, Alabama has subsequently fallen to number 7 spot on the AP Top 25. The last time the Commodores bested the Tide was 40 years ago.
South Carolina is looking to capitalize off Alabama's loss. Head coach Shane Beamer spoke to media in a press conference this Tuesday saying, quote, "We're going to do what we do, but like any game, there's going to be things that we see on the tape that we feel like have a chance to be successful, that fit us, that we will implement," end quote.
Last time the Gamecocks were able to beat the Tide was 14 years ago, back in 2010. The most recent meeting between the two teams was in 2019 when South Carolina dropped the match 47-23 in Williams-Brice. South Carolina's played one road game this season, and it went quite well. They beat Kentucky 31-6 in week 2. Obviously, Alabama's a much tougher opponent than Kentucky. What are you looking for this week, Sebastian?
I think it's pretty easy to kind of get down and say, oh, we're going to be beat by 50. And that might be true. But I think that we have a lot of momentum on road games that this season we've seen. And in the past, we've had some pretty big games on the road. And I think, Alabama this past week showed that, obviously they're not the number 1 team in the country, but also that they're not this untouchable team as well. Like, they make mistakes. Their coaching, has had some problems this past game. And I think that we can take advantage of that. And, our defense has been strong, and I think that we can get some big stops here, hopefully. But also, if our offense can take advantage of the Alabama defense, we saw the Alabama defense struggle against Georgia in the second half of that game, and then also, just continuously throughout this last game in Vanderbilt. So I think if we need to take advantage of what we can get here and kind of just build on this momentum and hopefully have a lot of momentum and just a lot of excitement after this past game and wanting to do better after that game and show that we're not how we played last game and go into here and hopefully have more excitement than Alabama will have, wanting to prove that they're not how they played against Vandy. Yeah,
last week we mentioned Ole Miss lost to Kentucky at home, so they were definitely fired up. They were rattled. They were ready to come back and go at us. And Vanderbilt beating Bama is probably the worst thing that can happen for us, just because Alabama's not going to be making the same mistakes they made against Vanderbilt. Milroe looked pretty solid. He had 310 pass yards, a touchdown, and an interception, but he definitely didn't look how he did in the Georgia game. He definitely could not find Ryan Williams as often as he wanted to, the 17-year-old sensation, obviously, that is taking the world by storm. But they're going to be furious. They're going to have that fire underneath them. It's unfortunate for us because we will have the same fire, but Vanderbilt lighting one underneath Bama is going to be tough because Nick Saban's still a very big part of Alabama. He definitely gave Kalen DeBoer a very stern talking to, and I'm sure Kalen gave his team a very stern talking to this whole week. So they're not going to let anything slide past them again. They're going to be ready to make a statement and get back into the top 5 in the AP poll. The fact is, Bama has never really had to worry in the regular season, but now they're playing these different teams. They played Georgia in the regular season for the first time in a while. Obviously, didn't expect Vanderbilt to go the way they expected it to go, but any SEC matchup is a hard matchup, and it doesn't matter who you're playing, where you're playing. It's going to be very interesting to see how hard Bama plays us and if we can put up a good fight.
Yeah, that last game just showed the toughness of the SEC as a football conference. But also, I would hope in this past week that, hopefully our team has been looking at some film from that game and kind of analyzing how Vanderbilt kind of took advantage of Alabama and see what we can do. Not to just copy. I don't think we should copy them, because they're gonna know, how to fix that after that last game. But how to just generally take advantage and use, smaller plays to kind of just beat them and get over the top there. And again, just going back to our defense and relying on our defense, like I said last week, I think they were good, but it's hard to motivate a defense when the offense isn't doing anything. So I think that as long as our offense is doing okay, our defense will be even better and hopefully get some big stops against Alabama to help us in this game.
We have to control the ball. We have to have time on offense. We cannot be on the field for 5 minutes defensively and then get a 3-and-out on offense just to send our defense right back out. Like you mentioned, they are exhausted by these second halves, and especially the fourth quarter. And that leads to sloppy mistakes. The more mentally and physically tired you are, the more mistakes and offside penalties and unsportsmanlike conduct penalties you're going to get. So we really just need to help our defense, need to help Dylan Stewart and Nick Emilwari on defense. We need to ground and pound on offense. Control the clock, control the tempo, and ground and pound doesn't even necessarily mean run the ball. We know we can do that. But we need to establish it a little better with what we talked about at the beginning of the show with these medium distance passes. I would like to see a little more screen passes, maybe. Yeah. Try and open something up in the perimeter. A couple weeks ago, we saw defensively we struggled to make perimeter tackles on LSU. I know a lot of these teams have the same issues. So not necessarily Bama, but we'll see if we got to get a little tricky today. We got to really open the playbook and trust Lenore Sellers and trust Robbie Ashford and whoever's playing just to air it out and make some defensive plays, or offensive plays, excuse me.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the defense and just being disciplined again. With these fouls, I think we mentioned this after the LSU game, but this has just been plaguing our team all season, and I think that if we can get that down and limit the amount of fouls that we have and just go back to playing normal football, it's kind of unacceptable for fifth years to be making the same fouls every single game and making the same mistakes when they've been playing for so long, and should have the discipline and the coaches just by their side, telling them this is not acceptable. You've been playing for so long, and so I like to see that. I like to see us fix those mistakes, and I think if we fix these coaching mistakes from last week, and just stop making these stupid mistakes and just go back to the basics of football, I think that we have a chance.
Absolutely. Before we go, here's our score predictions for today's game. You go first.
I'm taking Bama here. I'm going 45-10. I think this is the worst possibility for us. I'd like to see it happen a little better. Like I was just saying, I think if we can fix these coaching mistakes, stop making stupid call plays, motivating our defense with good offense, I think that we can possibly do a little better than this and possibly bring out a win. But this is the worst case scenario, I think, for us. I think a lot of fans and possibly our team is going into this thinking that we're going to lose. But hopefully, like we were mentioning earlier, if we go into this with the momentum and be fired up from last game's loss, hopefully we'll be able to take it over the top.
I try and be as positive as I can. If you see me at games, I'm yelling a lot, but usually at the end I'm positive. I take away the key points, but I'm very worried about today's game. I'm very worried the fact that it is in Bama. I'm very, very worried it'll be over very quickly, I should say. South Carolina has been good on the road, but like I mentioned, it was Kentucky, who does have a resume-building win over Ole Miss, but it's Alabama. It's the best dynasty in college football. I've chosen South Carolina every week, but this week I have to go with Bama 42-17, and I'm going to have to agree with you. It's just such a tall task. They need to play well. I just want to see them play well. I just want to see them open the playbook, whether it works or not, because they can build on that. Even if it doesn't go the way they want it to go today, they can go into practice next week against Oklahoma, which is a much better opponent for us, and really watch that film, check that game tape, and see what worked and what didn't. Now you have that trust next week because you can practice what you want to practice, and then you're not just running the ball every time. Then you can control the play clock, and use your playbook.
Yeah, and I agree with you. You know, I think, like I said, a lot of us aren't expecting to win, but I'd like to see us have a good show out here and prove that, you know, again, last week was just a flop. You know, we are a good team. This is going to be a top 5 team by the end of the season. So a lot of people don't expect us to win, but if we can make some big plays and kind of hold our own and not just get completely destroyed, I think that's what a lot of fans are hoping for rather than a complete win. So, you know, I think it'll be a good game either way. I hope that we play for the entire game. I think we've had a lot of struggles with keeping our rhythm in the second half and just kind of keeping our momentum. But, you know, we've seen teams like Georgia who are able to do that and then almost come back against Alabama and take advantage of that. So I'd like to see us continue throughout that second half and not just kind of give up at halftime like I've seen us do a lot of times in the past. So, you know, I think there's a lot of possibilities for us here to do well, and I'd like to see us, you know, kind of take advantage of these and just give a good showing at the very least.
Absolutely.
That wraps up our show for today. Thanks for tuning in to Gamecock Game Day.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, and Facebook at SGTV at USC. To keep up with all of our content, be sure to also visit us online at sgtv@usc.com. I'm Austin McConnell.
And I'm Sebastian Godun. From all of us here at SGTV, have a great day, Carolina, forever to thee.